Hello and welcome to another Gospel Project video. This week we jump into Acts chapter 8 and 9, where we're going to read about the conversion of a young man named Saul, who we know as Paul, from being somebody who was as anti-Jesus as you could be to somebody who gave his life for the spread of the gospel and in love for Jesus. So we first meet Saul at the end of Acts chapter 7, when they are when they're stoning the believer Stephen to death. It says that as they're doing this, there's a young man who is kind of standing by the coats and holding the coats, whose name is Saul. And we meet Saul again a little bit later on in Acts chapter 8, where it talks about that he was he was a Pharisee, very into Judaism, and very against the church, very against any of the followers of Jesus. He was persecuting them, he was killing them, he was arresting them. And so in that vein, he was given permission to head to Damascus, that if he found any believers there, that he could do the same thing to them. He could arrest them, he could kill them, just basically to do anything to keep people from believing and following in Jesus. And on the way to Damascus, you know the story, blinding light from heaven, he hears a voice that is Jesus talking to him, saying, hey, why are you persecuting me? And Saul is kind of like, who are you? I'm Jesus. Here's what you're going to do. And he's got these traveling companions with him. They see the light, they hear a noise, they don't understand the voice, but it all goes away, and all of a sudden Saul is there and he's blind. He can't see. He's led to the town by his friends. He's kind of staying in a house there for 3 days while he is blind. Simultaneously, Jesus goes and he talks to a man named Ananias, who is a believer, and says, hey, you're going to go to this place, you're going to find this guy Saul, he's blind, and he's been told in a vision that you're going to come and you're going to help him restore his sight through my power. And Ananias is like, hold on a second, I know this guy, I've heard stories. He hates us. This is a trick. This is a trap. Why would we do this? And God's answer is really cool. He says, go and do this. Paul is mine. Paul's going to believe in me. Paul's going to follow me. And I'm going to show him how much he's going to suffer for doing that. Basically kind of laying out the story arc of Paul's ministry of he's going to be very fervent in his belief and very active in sharing the gospel and taking the kingdom of God to places it hadn't been yet. But he was going to suffer. And if you know anything else about Paul's story later on, it's that he did suffer. He was shipwrecked, he was imprisoned, he was stoned, he was beaten, he was all of these things. And all of that because he was following the Lord. But I think one of the reasons why this story gravitates with so many people is you get to see what happens when Jesus and the gospel confront someone who doesn't believe. You would have looked at a guy like Saul and said, this guy will never believe. It doesn't matter who is sharing the gospel. It doesn't matter what he's doing. He's never going to believe. And yet, Jesus shows up. He has an encounter with Jesus. He hears the gospel, and he believes. And that's because it doesn't matter who we are and how we share the gospel, how good our teaching or our preaching is or whatever. It's God who changes hearts. And I think that gives a lot, for me, it gives me a lot of encouragement and a lot of hope that I know people who are so far away from the Lord and people who don't know Jesus at all and don't want to know Jesus. And it gives me hope that by sharing the gospel, by me getting in their way with the gospel and with Jesus, that Jesus and the gospel can confront them, and Jesus can change the coldest, hardest heart to one that beats in sync with Jesus and with his mission. But that is the story of Paul. It's a story you know. It's a story your kids probably know. It's always good to go back and just really kind of juxtapose those two things of how far away Paul was and how Jesus was able to bring him near, because that is the power Jesus has. Change hearts. The big idea was simply that God saved Jesus, that Jesus saved Paul, and then showed him what his mission was going to be in following him. But I hope you have a good week this week. I hope you're doing well. And until I see you again in person or in the next video, God bless.